Welcome to the Provoke Media Podcast. I'm Megan Keogan, Head of Product Development and Production here at Provoke and host of today's episode sponsored by Havas Red. The era of misinformation has shifted the role of brands in our society and therefore the role of PR and communications from storytelling to fact-telling. Now more than ever, today's consumers are increasingly looking to brands as sources of information as well as change agents and conversation shapers. In this episode, we'll discuss the shift from brand storytelling to fact-telling amidst the rise of misinformation. And most importantly, we'll explore the distinct differences between the two and telling stories, whether PR professionals should even be the storytellers at all anymore. With us today is James Wright, Global CEO, Havas Red, and Global Chairman of the Havas PR Network. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Megan. Great to be here.
Likewise, and good to do another episode with you. We are excited to talk about this topic, which you've recently given a number of keynotes on, speaking about the rise of misinformation and shifting the role of brands in society. Can you give us a little bit of background of just how you've come to be a presenter on this particular topic?
Yeah, thank you. No, it's an area that I've been quite passionate about. And I think, it's important just to take a step back and look at kind of the context and the background to how this is playing out presently. I mean, I kind of define the current sort of period of time, the last few years, based around the 3 Ps. So polarized politics being the first P. All around the world, more than ever, information is being weaponized, whether that's to score points, to strike fear, or to gain support and votes. Second P is around the pandemic. We're still dealing with the pandemic and its long-term impacts on our health, be it physical or mental, the economy and our communities. It's really heightened all of our anxiety and accelerated change, and not all of that change is for good. And the final P really is around protests, and we've got protests happening seemingly everywhere. Everything from war, climate, equal justice, employee rights, abortion, transgender rights, gun control, the role of social media, the state of the economy, AI, whether that's protests in terms of its physical form or people making protests online, it's happening all over the place. You've got this polarized politics, the pandemic, and protests, and that really is feeding this frenzy of misinformation and disinformation, and really recognizing our role as strategic, communications professionals, that we have a genuine responsibility to act with transparency and authenticity when it comes to the work that we're doing for our brands and our clients.
Absolutely. And within this, you speak a lot about this shift of the era of storytelling, where PR professionals have really, for many years, prided themselves on being such strong storytellers and sharing narratives, but really the need to shift more into a fact-telling era. And would love to hear your thoughts a bit on what that transition looks like and how they are different.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, storytelling, it's what we do, right? That's what we've always talked about throughout my entire career. And we call ourselves storytellers, and we are experts at crafting unique and compelling stories. But the nature of storytelling is changing, and in recent years, with the rise of misinformation, we've seen how storytelling can become quite dangerous. I used to say there's a distinct difference between storytelling and telling stories, but now I question whether we should be storytellers at all. It seems quite unsophisticated in many ways in the face of a lot of the critical issues of our time, when so many people's rights are coming into question, and we're in the midst of propaganda wars. I mean, if we think about it, everybody in, whether you're in-house or in agency land, you work in government departments, in the armed forces, in the emergency services, at an NGO, you can, through your strategic and technical capability, make a story fly in the media, whether it's factually accurate or not. And that means we need to generally recognize that PR has a power that can be used as a force for good and for bad. And I guess, the rise of fake news in particular has really challenged the traditional role of storytelling, not only in our industry, but also in society. And I think it's also led to the erosion of long-standing defenses against misinformation. And whilst this is of a concern globally, particularly in the US, where I lived for the last 4 or 5 years, it served as really a microcosm of the destructive power of misinformation and unsubstantiated storytelling that can destroy trust and any chance of bipartisan agreement from different groups. And if you look at the rise of misinformation, disinformation, it's quite kind of daunting. And with the technology that we've got today, it's become exponentially more sophisticated. And it can be spread so fast, and through a multitude of different channels, and that can have kind of a profound impact on society. And I think that's more than a little bit scary. I mean, with the research papers that we produced over the last sort of 6 months, 80% of the adults in the US have said that they have knowingly come across fake news and knowingly consumed it. 86% of Americans admitted that they have fallen into the trap of fake news, only finding out that it was fake later. And nearly a quarter of Americans say that they've shared fake political news online. So these statistics kind of are a little bit scary, and so it's not just responsibility of us as strategic communicators, but I guess also as consumers of that media to educate ourselves about what is real and what's not.
Would you say that the kind of like root of your perspective here is that storytelling, in the true sense that we have known it from PR professionals, which has been authentic and compelling and truthful in and of itself, is now dangerously close to being mistaken for misinformation or fake news? And it's just that it's a kind of a fine line. Is that what you're suggesting, or are you suggesting that it doesn't have a place for an entirely separate reason?
No, I mean, I think, when we're talking about storytelling, I think it's about ensuring that the story that we are kind of, sharing and crafting for our clients are based in fact and based in reality. And obviously kind of, depends what you're selling and what the story is. But all I'm saying is that the responsibility for ensuring the accuracy of information as it's presented, particularly as it relates to serious issues, whether that's to do with healthcare, or should I say more broadly health and wellness, whether that's to do with behavioral change, those kinds of topical issues that are coming up kind of seemingly more and more regularly now, that we are very much responsible for ensuring its accuracy. So rather than trying to tell a great story where we might bend the truth somewhat, but to play it more straight.
Yeah. So, not to be a devil's advocate here, but would you suggest then that storytelling still has a place within fact telling?
I think we always need to tell a story well.
Yeah.
But if you as a strategic communicator knowingly are changing the facts to fit your story, then that's where I think it becomes a dangerous place to be. And I think with, as I say, this kind of polarization of society, it's even more important that we become a trusted driver of change as it relates to communications. Communications can be used and is being used as a weapon, and so I think we've got to recognize that we have a very important role to play there.
What are some of the very tangible things that communicators can implement into their existing storytelling model as they start to shift to a focused fact-telling perspective or lens? What are some of the tactical things that they can be incorporating to ensure that they are doing a service to the truth?
Yeah, so number one, I think, be our brand's fact tellers. So in this sea of misinformation and political polarization, our job is to be our clients' fact tellers and to help them sustain brand trust and loyalty through that. So we have to help both ourselves and clients and journalists sort through that misinformation and really lead with the facts. I think that's important. Expect the unexpected always. You need an always on preparedness strategy I think these days for your clients. We must be wearing a crisis comms hat, if you like, even when there isn't a crisis or an issue that we should be managing. We have to be on top constantly of monitoring the landscape, identifying potential threats, and preparing our clients to be proactive rather than reactive if and when a crisis occurs. And you could almost say that we're moving now from storytelling to story doing. Action matters today. We must help our clients become active allies to the causes they support. And I think that's been a big shift in recent years, where you could be an ally for an issue, but actually being an active ally is actually where you need to play now. So actually getting on the field and actually helping an issue and a cause that you support, that you believe in, that you value, to help progress that cause or that issue. And even if that means sometimes alienating a small part of your stakeholders.
When we talk about the fact telling and responding and proactively responding to misinformation, would you say that there's a greater need for facts that are concrete, like data points, statistical, hard numbers, very like measurable? Or do you think of fact in a broader sense?
I think it depends what it is, but I think backing it up with factual data is always, I think, helpful for people to be able to understand something a little bit easier and a little bit better, and that's obviously what we're taught through our education systems as well. But equally, instinctively, lead with integrity. We want to make our clients happy and help them reach their goals, but we can't sacrifice integrity to do so, even if that means setting the bottom line aside for a period of time. We need to tell the right story, not just a good story. I mean, anyone can tell a good story, but it's more important than ever now, and I believe this today, that we tell the right story for our clients, or or for the particular message that we're trying to deliver.
Without asking you to delve into a specific client example, broadly, are you able to sort of help us think through what responding or proactively responding to misinformation can look like in a fact-telling, truth-telling sort of narrative, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a rule that we've always had in the world of communications and public relations. It's that, if something is presented in media or on social media that is factually inaccurate, it needs to be corrected, and we should be going out of our way to ensure that is corrected. Because if you don't correct it, it then essentially becomes a fact of its own, because it lives on forever. So we work with our clients to ensure that anything that's presented around their brand and any of their sort of products or services are ensured that it's they are presented correctly. We've had examples where previous presidents have said certain things about our products and services of our clients where we've had to correct them because they were presented inaccurately. Everything from injecting disinfectant to sort of help try to cleanse your body of COVID-19, through to the role of certain consumer products in our lives. So I think ensuring that we're I mean, that's obviously an extreme example, but making sure that our products and our services of our clients are presented accurately is obviously important. And that's no different to what it is today. It's just what it was in the past, but I think it's just becoming more and more utilized in a way that it can get shared and spread really, really quickly around our different channels that we're all consuming.
What sort of efforts would you recommend agencies add or communicators add to their wheelhouse in terms of monitoring the fake news that may be out there? Would you suggest that it needs to be more of a reactive or a proactive of what stories may come to the surface? Like, how much effort should be going into the preparation for misinformation or fake news?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess on the flip side of the fact that there's a lot of new technology, sophisticated technology that can present a story in a different type of light or in a different way. Equally, there's technology out there that can help us find those stories that exist around clients' issues that matter to them. So we can find them pretty quickly and easily in most of the channels. Obviously, there's so many channels now that also a lot of our monitoring services don't necessarily pick up everything, but nonetheless, we can pick up a lot of it. So, constantly sort of monitoring that is super important. A lot of our clients obviously invest a lot of money in ensuring that they can follow their reputation online and also follow issues and competitors and analyze, where all of that exists. But I think that just to come back to that point though about storytelling, it is what I think is now, it's just fact telling told well. Because our job is to make sure our brands are communicating authentically and meaningful in everything that they do. And that, I guess, made me come back to that question that I asked myself, which is, are we still storytellers, or should we be more fact tellers than we are storytellers? Because if we have to, if the battle is to win, the hearts and minds from the information that our consumers consume, then we have to be the custodians of that information and how it's presented. So for me, that's become, super important. So no longer about just storytelling, but also about fact telling. And so, and then we can also look through our own media monitoring as to, how we're providing that information to media and then how media is representing it. Because just because you provide a story doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be presented in the way that you want the media to present it. They sometimes, take their own spin on it, and that's obviously something that we deal with day to day.
Would you say tone or delivery or medium of the enhanced storytelling or the more truth forward storytelling plays a role at all in how it might be received or consumed?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to present it in a transparent and authentic way. I mean, obviously, you can, I mean, it depends on the story, of course, and the client, because you can still, I don't want to take the fun out of the work we do, because, one of the best parts of working in our industry is that, we get to use, strategic thinking and creativity every day to solve business challenges of our clients. But nonetheless, when it becomes to, as I said earlier on, issues that are super important to our communities, to our health and wellness, to the progress in society, we need to be very smart in terms of how we go about that work and take that responsibility very, very seriously as a communicator.
What are some of the best ways that communication professionals can support clients to be the custodians of their brand communications and how those messages are received by both consumers and the media?
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked a little bit about this before, which is, about being, story doers, not just storytellers, but, really drive the action that the clients are taking to deal with particular problems, issues, causes. I think, you've got to be so much more than just the badge now as a brand. You're more than just a name. And that concept of corporate purpose, which has been pressure tested like never before in the last few years, I think has really come to the fore about, what do you stand for? What are the values that you have? Because I think that, that concept of purpose has really been disrupted. And so, ensuring that, there is something that you're buying into beyond the pure product and service is becoming super important. And that means also you need to lead with integrity and to ensure that you're delivering those messages and stories for our clients in a factual based way.
Would you say that there's any sort of barometer that a brand or communicator can use to sort of measure what action places are best, most worthy of their time and efforts in this storytelling capacity? So determining what causes, what action moments are going to have the most impact and the most valuable impact when it comes to this better sense of storytelling, or this evolved sense of storytelling.
I mean, I think, understanding your brand and being really comfortable as a brand, knowing who you are and where you're going, the type of customers you want to attract, and the kind of stakeholders that you want to engage with your brand, I think is super important. So if you know your audience really, really well, I think it's a relatively straightforward way of going about your business. And you see that with many brands who, down the years have really, pushed forward progress in terms of more social issue based campaigns that go beyond just their products and services, which I think gives people more of a meaningful reason to want to buy and be loyal to that brand. I think recognizing that your product and service is not just about dealing with a functional sort of a functional way of helping people with their lives and improving their lives, but also that can also create a personal connection and make their lives easier. Within Havas, we have what we call our meaningful brand study, which we've been running for 15 years now. Every year we survey 300,000 to 400,000 people in 10 plus markets around the world, and we've done that every year for 15 years now to look at what makes a meaningful brand. And we look at 3 types of equity: functional equity, personal equity, and collective equity. And a brand that can really stand both for functional equity, which is really kind of the product and service doing what it says it does really, really well, to a personal equity of how it connects with you on a personal level and how it makes your life easier on a personal level, to the collective equity, which is how that brand has behaves in society and helps support the collective community. Those are if you get all of that right in your story, and you do that authentically and with transparency, I think then you end up in a really, really great place. And that's where a brand becomes very sticky in terms of loyalty with its consumers. So for us, in the most meaningful brands are successful because they do all of those things really, really well.
Absolutely. This has been a whirlwind of a lot of good information and a great kind of overview of many of the topics you've been speaking on as of late. I know that I've asked a lot of questions and I haven't really given you much of a chance to say if there's anything I've missed or anything that you wanted to highlight from some of your recent work in this space.
Yeah, well, I think brands are, there's a recognition that brands are stewards of truth. They're more responsible than ever for the content and information that they share and put out into the world. And so just recognizing the responsibility we have as professionals in the PR and communications industry to ensure that our clients are doing that in the right way. Because with the erosion in trust of both governments and media, which is at not in a great place right now, it's really been brands that have stepped up to the plate to provide information. If you think about the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was really brands and companies that stepped up to the plate and offered those kind of simple messaging around social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands. It was in the face of a lot of government sort of information that was somewhat conflicted at times. And so it is brands do recognize that they can place stories that obviously need to be factually accurate, but that can help ensure that the communities in which we operate are both safe, but also are progressive in the way that they think. As I say, so if brands are becoming more and more trusted for that information, and particularly us as employees of brands and companies, we're listening to our companies, and the information that they share. It's obviously kind of becoming more and more critically important that they continue to recognize that role and do it in the right way.
Absolutely. Well, James, thank you so much for your time today. This has been another great conversation sponsored by Havas Red, talking about the 3 Ps in the new age of purpose. Thank you for sharing this. Is there a place online anywhere that people can find any sort of summaries of this or resources that are out on like a Havas blog or anything?
Yeah, we have it on our website. So if you go to havasred.com, you'll find all of our thought papers on from pledges to progress, which is to look at how sort of corporate pledges have had to now move very much into the realms of actually demonstrating actionable progress and successes that they've had around issues that they want to support, and also around misinformation and disinformation, some of the work that we've been doing in that area for our clients. So yeah, check it out, havasred.com.
Well, we appreciate your time today and look forward to our next conversation. Thanks. Thank you so much, James Wright.
Thanks, Megan.
Take care.